Big stunner, 100. You stupid, just shut up. Keep breezy, I'm big boy, done.
Jon, we're here. Second episode. Is school starting this week for you guys? For your kids?
Tomorrow morning. It's happening. It's all happening all at once.
That's brilliant. I know when my kids were in school, at least in the school district, same school district you guys were in there at Leander, they started the first day of school was Thursday. Which was a great idea. Like an ease into it. Just 2 days the first week, and then you get a weekend. Yeah, I thought it was great.
Buffer. Yeah. It's good.
Now you're
4 kids, man.
Driving, walking, riding bikes. How they get into school? Bus?
I mean, it's going to take everything because we've got an elementary, a middle school, and then 2 high schoolers. Our second son's entering as a freshman, so all over the place. All the schools are being represented over here.
You got 3 campuses you got to get around to
every day.
Oh,
drop off and pick up. And the infrastructure of this town. So I live in a small town out here in Lago Vista.
Yeah.
And like it was set up for people pretty much over the ages of like 70.
Yeah.
And that's totally changed, of course, because Austin's just grown and there's just so many people just buying stuff up. And there's a lake out here and people figured that out. And I don't know how or why it took everybody so long to figure that out, but it just all happened.
Well, it's just people are looking for something different. You know, they're looking for a, experience that no one else, that, it's too crowded here. So I got to go somewhere else kind of a thing, I would imagine.
For sure.
So
for sure.
You're the next one
further
out.
Away from furthest, the bubble has expanded to this small town. That's the way I see it. Because everything's just been bought up.
Still, I guess it classifies it as an exoburb or a bedroom community, right? Is what we'd call Lago Vista.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's funny. We're suburban kings because we come from that. We grew up in that. But you live now in an exoburb, and I live in the city in Portland now, where we have one car, and I ride a bike or take the metro around. So
that's awesome.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's see what's happening this week. Are you doing the fantasy football? I think that it's the time where the draft orders are starting to get picked.
I've kind of fallen out of love with the fantasy football bit. Like I've played it for over 15 years, going on maybe 20 years. Yeah. And of those years, man, probably 15 of them solid. Like it took a few years off here and there. And I'd say the past 4 or 5 seasons, I've been like, I'm not doing this again. And then I get the group text like, are you in? And then I find myself back in it. And I have a lot of thoughts about fantasy football, but I want to say right now, man, I don't think I want to hop back on that.
You're out this year.
I think I'm out this year, man.
Yeah, no, I prefer March Madness because it's 3 weeks. I can do that, but a whole football season, it gets a little tough. I did it once in 2009. I was in the league with you, and I won. I remember winning first ever. I probably should have quit then. I did cheat though. Like I had during draft day, I had one of my good friends on the phone the entire time, helping me with my draft picks. And he's, that guy is probably in 8 leagues for money kind of thing. And we picked up a little known running back named LaDainian Tomlinson. He knew it on day one. Hey, you're going to be able to pick up this guy like in the 3rd round. So we'll sit on him. And that guy carried my team all year.
He was such a stud, man.
Yeah. Very cool. Now more March Madness. But I found some cool stuff in the news this week. Study out of Penn State. Let me pull this up for anybody watching on the YouTubes or wherever you might.
Yeah, as you're pulling that up, I just got to say a few things about fantasy football. I think the thing that makes fantasy football or breaks it, a couple of things. First, it's like draft night. That's kind of the best time for the whole fantasy football season because all the dudes are bringing their best like grilled food items. And then what makes or breaks a season is if you're actually able to like get together to watch games throughout the season. That just doesn't happen. And then also like the reward / consequence, like if you win, then you get this trophy or not just, okay, it's the end of the year. Everybody needs to pay up or like the loser getting like a tattoo of the winner's choice, or anything that spices things up, because I don't feel like the reward of playing fantasy football is there, outside of course just winning first place, or sometimes the leagues have these consolidation, like third, fourth place gets money, but like for me,
you don't want to get last.
Well, that's the thing, is if you're in a season where the first and second place, if you're not first or second place, you're last. It doesn't matter. And there's been seasons where I've been undefeated the whole season, or I've been in first place and I made it to the championship and lost. And then there's been seasons where I was in dead last, climbed my way back in, made it to the championship. And it's just, for me, I've been in the championship maybe 45 to 40% of the time, or up there, like in the hunt,
which is good.
Yeah, it's good. But then, I just, even when I win, it's cool. Sorta. It's just, a handful of dollars. And I just don't know if it's worth the past few seasons. It's worth the effort of hopping on there, getting on the waiver wires, paying attention to what's happening in the league. I find myself rooting for teams that I wouldn't naturally root for. So, like, I don't know, man. It's an effort that I don't know if I'm gonna.
I'm sure AI could help. As some people know, I've built AI algorithms in sports for predictive models. I haven't tried it in fantasy football because I didn't grow up watching football, because I've always lived in good weather areas, and I've always been a super active person. So the thought of being indoors on a Sunday is foreign to me. I just never watched football, not for lack of wanting or trying. It just never was around. It was never an opportunity. So, and also, having been in college in San Diego and Hawaii for a few years, when the Super Bowl was on, that was the time to go surf. Or if you're a golfer, a great time to go play golf, but you have to be on the West Coast or farther for daylight. But, football's cool.
It is cool. It's cool.
Let me jump in the news here.
Yeah.
Study out of Penn State, John, says parents who use humor have better relationships with their children. And there's some data in here. Link will be in the show notes. See if I can find these percentages. It was pretty good. There we go. Survey 312 people studied, 18 to 45. More than half were raised by people who used humor. 71.8% agreed that humor can be an effective parenting tool. I agree.
Yeah.
Of those, and this is the takeaway here, of those who reported that their parents used humor, 50.5% said they had a good relationship with their parents. Those who said their parents didn't use humor, only 2.9% reported a good relationship with their parents. First, John, were your parents funny?
Yeah, my parents were awesome. My dad still is funny.
Your dad's
great. He cracks me up, man. I love that. And I will just say, man, I have a good relationship with my parents.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
I think maybe my mom, she's funny in her own way, but I feel like the jokes kind of spin out of her personality. Like I don't want to say we're laughing at her more than we're laughing with her, but that's kind of where the humor comes from. And she's
funny because she's a good sport.
Yeah, like I think one of the people I find most funny, and I love him, is Conan O'Brien. And I love him because of something specific.
What's that?
He makes fun of and laughs at himself and his production and he's constantly making fun of, like, another low budget, they come out from the back and they're juggling and he's just sitting there like, what are we doing? And it just makes me laugh because he's pointing out like the obvious and he can laugh at himself. So, yeah.
No, that's good. That's like a Jack Black, very similar. Like he or Jim Gaffigan. Although as a stand-up comedian, it does get a little bit old because you could, after about 40 minutes of listening to Gaffigan make fun of himself. Okay, we get it. You don't like how much you weigh or whatever. So, but no, my parents, humor and life in my house. As you know, John, I am the youngest of 9, born to very old parents, relatively. So I didn't get to have an adult relationship with my parents before they left this world. But I always remember laughing in my house. So humor was a part of it. humor is a part of the dialogue with my kids now. We just both my kids have the same kind of dry, witty humor that I have and my wife has. So, we're all kind of on the same page. But yeah, humor, gotta laugh, man.
Dude, I was driving home, so there is a local. So in this very niche part of Austin, it's like more uppity. It's down southwest of Austin, just of downtown. It's called the Westlake area, and it's where like the powerhouse of this nationally known high school football team exists. Where Drew Brees came from, Justin Tucker came from, Nick Foles came from, Cade Klubnik, a quarterback Baker Mayfield was on the other side of the street, and they would have these head-to-head. So I could just keep rattling off these big time.
It's a cartel
names
over there, Westlake
It's
football.
a cartel.
There's definitely some not sanctioned by the Texas high school athletic department.
They're sponsored by this local attorney named Thomas J. Henry.
Yep.
And the funny part is like we keep track of that football team in the fall when they make a run in the playoffs, because like that's my alma mater. I played high school lacrosse there. I graduated from there. So my parents still live there. So if you watch, they stream it courtesy of Thomas J. Henry.
Yeah.
So my son and I, my youngest, he's the youngest, every time that would come on, we just started chuckling and laughing because of how overly upfront and in your face. And they would be like, "Do you need an attorney?" And it would show him coming out of a private jet, like staring into the camera.
Yeah.
And so when we drive through town and drive through Austin, you'll see his name. And every time we look at each other and start laughing. Well, the other day, we were driving and a Thomas J. Henry commercial came on. We just started laughing. And about a minute later, so my son's going into third grade. And so he had this epiphany. He said, "Oh, Dad, what is that?" And I was like, "What is what?" And he's like, "Why do we laugh every time Thomas J. Henry comes on?" And I was like, "But that's called an inside joke." And he's like, and he goes, "What are some of our other ones?" And he just started like rattling off these inside jokes that we have that is just between him and I. Like, and we got another one that's like, "Hey, it must be the money," like from that song. And when he says it and when I say it, we just start laughing. Like, even if it's like from a fail, like we see somebody trip over a power cord walking in the mall, we'll just look at each other and be like, "Hey, it must be the money." And we just start laughing.
Oh, that's
so
fantastic.
It was super cool because like I saw that like light bulb come on with my son, like saying, "Hey, what are some of those other things?" So
is there a joke, like a moment where the family experienced a thing a long time ago? Your kids span a bigger age gap than mine. Mine are just 2 years apart. That is still a thing today.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What is it?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind, I don't even know if this is what you're asking, but we went to one of those Frogo frozen yogurt shops, and we went in there, and if you go in those places, they hand you those little like ketchup, like paper
little sample cup.
Yeah. And every time, like you hold that thing in there and you pull the lever down and it just goes over. The cup does not work.
It can't fit the smallest amount that can come out of the nozzle.
So we went in there. They handed those to my kids. Now, don't get mad at our kids if you're going to hand those to our kids. But
yeah, that's disaster.
So we went in there and like my daughter, she's so sweet and she gets that little cup and she goes over and she pulls it and it like dumps on her hand. And the owner, he's like this kind of uptight guy because I think he's wondering how many months he's going to be able to make it in that location. He comes over and kind of boxes her out a little bit, takes position, gets those little cups from her, and he looks at her and he goes, "You don't do it, I do it." And so from there, we say that to each other all the time. Like we'll be in the kitchen cooking eggs, and she's like, "I need to flip this egg," and I'll like rip the like spatula out of her hand. I'll be like, "You don't do it, I do it," and we just start laughing. And so we just all were there for that, and we weren't offended by that. I mean, we could have been like, "Dude, that was a little aggressive. Like you in my daughter's space." Like, but at the same time, like we just laughed, and it was like it became an inside joke.
Those are the moments. That's the stuff. That's the juice right there. Love it. Well, let me shift gears. former President Obama has always released his summer playlist. So
Okay.
I've got this year's. Might be some bangers
spinning off of last week's conversation or last episode.
Yeah, it might be some bangers on there. Let's take a look. Now, a lot of this I don't know, but you do have some. I want to first highlight some of the modern stuff. I don't. He's a boomer. He's got to be. He's over 60.
He's got a jump shot.
He's got a nice J. Her up here in the upper right. That's that's pretty new. Got some Tupac in there. I'm seeing Billie Eilish, Chihiro. I don't know that song.
Churro.
Yeah, Churro. Something that's great.
A Churro deserves a song being written after it. By the way,
got some older. Got Blackstreet and Dr. Dre. No Diggity.
Yeah.
That's certified banger.
Yeah.
Plus some slow jams. You got if you love somebody, set them free. Sting. That's good. Second page over here.
Oh, there's a second page on there.
Get a snoozer there. Nora Jones. Is there reggae? Yeah, got Bob Marley. And Belly Fool.
Threw that Beyonce on there.
Yeah.
At Texas Hold'em. She tried to cross over into that pop country scene. Have you heard that song?
He did. She did This Ain't Texas or something.
Yeah,
that Hold'em song?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
there's a lot of little honky tonks, a lot of people doing line dancing, and those get the youngins up and moving and stomping their boots around. So, I can see how Beyonce did that.
There's, like you said last week, there's some crossover with the hip hop in the country right now.
Yeah.
I'll allow it. It got a Symptom of Life by Willow. Is that Willow like Willow Smith or Willow like Matt Hardigan's
the greatest swordsman
challenge sidekick? Yeah, midget swordsman Willow.
You're gonna have to check that out. I want to see that. I want to see that.
It popped up in the Rex on the algorithm some time ago.
So they gave a nod to the Bad Bunny there. Went south of the border to say, "Hey, we love you guys. We're going to represent your guy."
Yep. Yeah, you got to think. Oh, you got Megan Thee Stallion and Glorilla. And my daughter's into that. I bet
for
she's
a second,
into that
I was thinking Glorilla.
Glorilla. The female rappers are having a moment right now. I'm here for it.
They're there. They're on the scene. They've arrived.
And then another certified banger, Rebirth of Slick, aka Cool Like That, Diggable Planets.
Look at that.
Good job. I'll look for maybe next week we'll look for Donald Trump's summer playlist. See what he's got going.
It would be interesting to see.
Awesome.
I think that would be quite the list.
What's the summer song? Like this is, or maybe an album. Like this is.
I mean,
one that's been with you for a long time.
I told you last week this summer, I think I listened to more Morgan Wallen than I did just about anybody. I just was playing the most in my truck. I mean, because literally I live right by the lake and we're out there 5 days a week. Like we drive to the lake 5 days a week. We pull up in my truck, folding chairs, got cooler. We got cold drinks. We've got, fishing poles in the truck, snacks, and we just post up. We watch the sun go down. We fish, we swim. And so it's just good lake music. It just kind of sets that tone, Yeah. It's got that. Yeah. It's got that country vibe, but he's got beats, I think he speaks to a bigger group than just the average. I'm
gonna have to sample it. I'm gonna have to get in there. I haven't really gotten into the country. I came of age in the Garth Brooks era where country got broken and it's yet to recover. It sounds like it is recovering.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
No, I would say Sublime's self-titled album is for me, being from California, Southern California, that album summer.
That's like saying the word truck month in Texas.
Yeah.
Like every month is truck month, Trucktober, truck January.
Truck.
Yeah. Yeah. So like Sublime in the summer, that's like endless summer music. Like that's going to work every summer. It's like.
Can't complain.
That works.
Can't complain.
It's going to be hard to beat that.
Well, this week's topic du jour, I guess it's topic du week. This week, last week we were talking music. Now here we're not talking current stuff, but I want to answer the question what is the ultimate dad movie? Right?
You know, the first thing that comes to my mind when you say that is, you know, growing up, we had the cable, and TBS would run a Tuesday and Thursday night movies for guys who like movies.
Oh,
and for whatever reason,
I remember that.
It was always Bloodsport. Like, it was always Jean-Claude Van Damme. But still, anyways, So when you say ultimate dad movie, the first thing is like movies for guys who like movies.
Well, let me put some structure around the question then. And it's that, you know, you're a dad. You've had a busy day at work or a busy week. You don't get a lot of opportunities to sit down and control what is going to be watched. Either you're informed by the sports maybe you're having to watch, so you don't sit down and watch a movie too often, or the kids, friends, whoever else is really there controlling what's on. But when it's your time as a dad to relax, and I don't want to work too hard. I don't want to take a risk on a movie I might not like. You know, and I want it to be engaging yet comfortable. You know, I can watch it no matter what my mindset is. It's enough to engage me. I know I'm going to like it. I know I'm going to have a good time. That's the dad movie, right?
Yeah.
And so for my dad, and maybe you know your dad's, I would say for my dad, it was Lawrence of Arabia.
Okay.
That is his favorite movie.
A lot of guy liner going on.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's my dad, qualifying. My dad was born in 1928. My dad's silent generation, so he's old. Or he was old, but rest in peace. And so if you haven't seen it, it is an all-time classic. If you are a movie fan, you should have seen it once. You know, it's like Citizen Kane or Clockwork Orange or Gone with the Wind. You don't have to like them.
Yeah.
You do need to appreciate what they are and what they did for the history of movies. Where
for sure.
This was, I would say, the first movie, because as you look at the history of movies, we're just taking stage plays and putting them on film so that you could watch them on demand, more or less, in a theater. And so for the longest time, even up until the 70s, that had a lot of, it put a lot of influence on what movies were. They were more or less glorified stage plays. Eventually the music was taken out of them, where Lawrence of Arabia, like I say for Citizen Kane, it's the first movie to manipulate time the way only a movie can, where you really can't manipulate time in a live stage play. Lawrence of Arabia, for my money, is the first movie to say, wait a second, this is moving pictures. We need to create beautiful pictures and scenes in the movie. So it's the first step in amazing cinematography, super widescreen. So it's at the time, it's kind of like watching Denis Villeneuve's movies now, specifically like Dune and his Blade Runner, where he's leveling up what visuals are. And so
top of the game, man. I don't know who's doing it at a higher level.
Yeah. So great movie. That was my dad's dad movie. Lawrence of Arabia. If he was going to sit down and watch something, that was his. Did your dad have a dad movie?
Well, the interesting thing is, I think if I had to guess my dad's answer, I think he probably would say It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay.
I think that may have been a movie that just really tugged at his heart and just helped them see, like, there's these movies that come out, I think, that speak to being a man. You know, like there was a Nicolas Cage movie, like a Christmas movie, where he like wanted to be a family man. I think it's called Family Man.
Yeah.
Where he was this rich New York guy and realized, like, man, I'm missing out on something. And so like this dude comes along and, you know, spins him into this altered life of what could have been if he would have just chased his high school sweetheart instead of, you know, the high-rise building and just, you know, all the movies.
The career.
So that this tension of when you take that path, the greater value on the other side of, you know, that slow burn of being a good husband, of being a good dad, and the grind and the week in and the week out of that. It doesn't look like you might want it to, you know, sitting in this swanky, lofty apartment, and you know, the give and take in that. So anyways, I think It's a Wonderful Life kind of captures some of that, of like doing good over time. And and the reward of that we don't necessarily see. So I think that's what, just through my dad, that that movie instilled some of that through him to me, like seeing the greater good of that. And I think that's why that really tugged at it.
Your dad's heavily involved in humanitarian work, nonprofit stuff.
That's right.
It makes total sense.
Retired. Yeah. He retired this spring, and in town in Austin, they designated a David Evans Day.
Oh.
So he has
what day is that?
Yes. I have it. It's on a certificate, but it was
let's
like last
figure
week.
what that is and make sure he's getting some free P. Terry's or something.
That's what we're saying.
Okay.
That's it. Get him the badge.
Hit up Patrick Terry. So I have 5 of my dad movies that are easy to watch. Doesn't matter how scrambled my brain is or whatever. I can just sit down, put it on, and I know I'm going to enjoy myself. I also went and again, because I work in AI, I grabbed a thread on Reddit where people were asking about dad movies, and I ran a model to rank and sentiment analysis them. And so I have that list too. But I'll start with my first one, and I would make an argument for this might be the greatest dad movie of all time that spans generations.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's a Tom Clancy joint. I love all the Tom Clancy's, Clear and Present Danger, the Harrison Ford Tom Clancy's, even the Ben Affleck Tom Clancy, which is, what is that? Sum of All Fears.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love the Tom Clancy's. But the peak Tom Clancy is Jack Ryan, played by Alec Baldwin. That is The Hunt for Red October. Fantastic.
Sean Connery.
Russians with English accents. It's got it all. It's got
submarines.
You got to have a military element. Yeah. You got it's kind of some spy stuff. It's a little bit heady. There's enough thinky going on to where it's not just bubblegum. And there's enough action, but not so much that it's like, like an 8-minute car chase in Ronin, where it's like, where you check out
endless car chase. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, the characters are easy to follow, easy to like. You don't like the ones you're not supposed to like. Just Hunt for Red October, I think.
Yeah, dude. That's a
maybe peak dad movie in terms of, I think most.
Yeah. So on this list, I think for me, thinking of just that category of dad movie, I think, just to be thinking through this framework for me of like, okay, well, either movies that I saw like as a kid or a movie that I would watch with my kids, like as a dad, like, and you were pointing out like after a kind of a long day, like just being able to put something on. I think that one of the things that comes at the expense of just the hustle is, for me, I'll just default to letting my kids pick the things out, because I've struggled with like, hey, you guys have got to watch this movie. It's a classic.
Yeah.
And 5 minutes in, they're gone. Like, they're not watching. And like, I feel this tension of like, whose children are y'all? Like, you have to love it. Or like,
why don't you love this?
Yeah. And it's tough. Because I feel like I went into that with my parents. Like they took me to the Star Wars, they took me to the Never Ending Story. Like I sat through the movies they introduced me to. So for me, that's something that I think through, is like, what's meaningful to me as a coming of age that I want to share with my kids, or have shared with my kids, where I'm not forcing them or trying to get them to watch something that I want to watch that they may not be interested in. Yeah. And that's tough. That's tough for me, because that's part of what I think we're fighting against with this podcast, is like culture pulling us away from this point in our life of toward growing culturally. Towards the things of like parenting, marriage, work, just all money, all the things in that keep us from the thing that's going to help drive us through all of that, which is culture. Yeah. So, dude, good choice, man. That was a good one to kick off with for me.
Yeah, no, I think just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, I think that when I look at my movies as well, I've enjoyed these for most of my life, or as a parent. And I think one qualifier is that it was okay to have these on when my kids were young. It wasn't like Basic Instinct or like,
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction, which is an all-time great. But, when your 8-year-old walks in to a certain scene, of you're watching, it's hard to focus. You got to be on alert. Where these, the kids walk in, nobody's going to be offended by the movies on my list. So what do you got? Give me one.
Man, it's my all-time movies. And I'll share why. All right. It's Big. Tom Hanks's 80s movie Big. And to me, I think just for me, I've always had this Peter Pan syndrome of like not wanting to grow up, but needing to grow up, and the tension of growing up and just being a kid. Like, I'm thankful that I have memories of being a kid that were good. Like, my childhood was filled with adventure and fun and, wax pack trading baseball cards and, riding a bike, sticking them in and spoke. And, just those like things that when you think of the 80s that I got to grow up in. And so, but the thing is when I look back and if I can be like really honest in that space, when I was a kid, I wanted to grow up. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to be able to drive. I wanted to have a girl, to like do all the things with, like hurry up and get there. And, that movie captures that tension within us or within me at that time of like, he made that wish. He went to the carnival. He made a wish to grow up, to be big, and he wakes up and he has to figure it out. And so he runs to town. He's got his buddy. He lands that job at a toy manufacturer, which was like a dream job to get paid to play with toys and watch, New York Giants Super Bowls in the background. That eventually he gets there and that catches up to him, where he realizes that there's something to not be missed with childhood, that he was missing, that he finally got what it was that he wanted, but he realized that it came at the expense of what he was truly wanting, which was just to grow up. And so like, I still feel that, like, I wish I could turn back time. Maybe I should make a movie called Small where I could go back and be a kid again. And
you want the same thing. You want the same thing. You want autonomy.
And
right? Yeah. And you think you don't have autonomy when you're a kid, but you have the most autonomy. Your responsibilities are so minimal. And now as an adult, you have so many responsibilities. The true wealth I would define as how much discretionary time do you have? A total great choice, great movie.
Yeah. And Tom Hanks, come on. He's one of my favorites.
Tom Hanks has range. Like that era. That era of Tom Hanks, I loved. Big, The Man with One Red Shoe,
Bachelor Party,
The Money Pit.
Money Pit.
Great era.
So good.
A Fish Called Wanda, was that him, or no? Was it the Mermaid one with Daryl Hannah? Was Tom Hanks?
What was the name of that? Yeah, it was a mermaid one.
It was
Daryl Hannah.
Yeah. Well, I forget what that was.
Turner and Hooch.
Turner and Hooch. Yeah. Dragnet.
Oh, come on.
Tom Hanks has done it all.
And he's still doing it.
I got an honorable mention I'll throw in there later. That's a Tom Hanks. So hook him up later.
All right. Keep it.
Next one from me. This one has nature. I love nature. So it's one of the primary reasons we moved back to the West Coast once my kids graduated high school. As you know, Texas has not a lot of nature, and what nature it has is very focused. Basically, if you don't want to be around a lake like you are, that's about it. Like it's lake stuff. That's about all you do.
All the plants, all the terrain, and all the plants in Texas. It wants to hurt you.
It's the Australia of the United States.
Everything's prickly and sharp.
Yeah. So we're out here in Oregon. I'm going to go backpacking next weekend for 4 days and just get in. I love the nature.
Come
I grew up in Northern California, fishing in rivers, fly fishing in rivers, fishing for trout.
Awesome.
So
that's awesome.
The movie here, since high school, this has been my jam. Brings a tear to my eye with the closing monologue every time.
It's already tugging at my heart.
A river runs through it, which is a great, great movie. Easy to watch. Like I said, similar to my last one, a little bit of action, good visuals.
I think the thing about that
great story
that hit really close to home. Everything you said, 100% yes. And the scenes of that scene when Brad Pitt hooks that monster and he's going down the river with it, and it's this epic fight.
Yeah.
But the thing that really gets me is like just that when you say dad movie, that dynamic between the father and his sons. That I think that becoming a dad, you begin to realize that your kids aren't all the same. That you can't just expect them to all be the same and do all the things the same, and that you get some kids that are doing things exactly how you want them to do it. And you get some kids that don't want to do it any way that you're doing it. Yeah. And that movie, it tugs at my heartstrings because you get this responsible son and you get this son who's living on the edge, and you see what happens through that. And it's like, as a dad, I think that's one of the most challenging things is seeing that equal value in each of your kids and loving them through that in their own way, and that tension between letting them do it but wanting to protect them, help them, provide for them through it. And that movie, to me, I think kind of captures that in a really unique way.
And similarly, and it's almost on the list, it gets an honorable mention on this line, and that is Legends of the Fall, which is kind of the same movie. Yeah, it just turns up the volume on that stuff. And as a dad, I had someone put to words something that really resonated with me. My minor in college was child development, so I've always kind of had a passion for it. And I often tell people, your job from birth to 4 years old as a parent for your kids is to make sure they're kind. They have to be liked by their peers and by the world so that they get good energy. And then moving forward from that, your job is to learn who they are. And a lot of our parents, if we were raised by boomers, a lot of us Xers, our parents had this, you're supposed to be like me. That's not how you were raised, that sort of stuff, where that's what I love about that movie is it teaches me how to discover who my kids are, not try to make them into something. And then how do I enable what you are? And how do I give you some guardrails? So River Runs Through It, great one, just beautiful flick.
All right, man. Well,
go, John.
I'm going to make a turn here.
But also a beautiful movie.
Yes. There is an underappreciated art in this film.
Both movies on your list coming up next are important movies that I think are underrated by critics and movie nerds because they are great movies. Go.
So I'm going to put Nacho Libre up there.
Yes.
For me, I've been south of the border, 5-6 times. And so I have an appreciation, I have an appreciation for where I live. It's cool to be here in Texas and the culture behind things. And that movie just kind of captures it in its own way. It's super quirky, but I mean, you've probably seen it, but just, man, I love Jack Black in general. I mean, he just cracks me up, and he played that role so well. And there's that's his best role. There are so many just little scenes and one-liners. And the thing is like, it's one of those movies I could just like come home from work, get the Apple TV, turn it on, start cooking, and it's just running. It's like wallpaper movie.
Good white noise.
At this point, good white noise. Where like, but still though, like I remember seeing it in the movie theater and I was like, I want to see this again. Like that was just I missed too much good stuff. This is just too good. And so, and I love the heart behind it, for the orphans and, that dude, he plays, it had that struggle between, that nun and the kids, but then it ends well. And apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but it's been surfacing on the, Instagrams or probably Twitter or, reels that like this dude actually existed, that there was a dude who worked at a church that had an orphanage and he wrestled on the side. I don't know. They were showing pictures, but who knows? You don't believe everything that you see in this world today, right?
I don't care. I want to believe that's real. That's fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and believe that's real and just go with it.
Let's do it. It's based on loosely based on a true story.
Yeah. That movie is, speaking of the top of the show, we talked about, humor and families, parents that use humor. That movie came out at just the right time as my kids were like 5 and 3 or 6 and 4, kind of in that range.
And it's not a canon. Pixar. It's not a Pixar
canon
movie. Yeah.
Canon in our house. So it was, it was not a cartoon, but the jokes and the one-liners in there they're part of the vocabulary of my family. So it's, it's a super important movie.
And the jokes
stylistically. Stylistically, it's
awesome
it's
stuff.
unique.
The jokes don't feel contrived like they do in some movies where they're trying to cater a joke to like an innuendo to the adults and it goes over the kids' heads and stuff. None of that really exists in that movie. It just is what it is. It's just, I feel like it's pretty artistic, and in it, I believe the art. I love the artist of it and the players, the characters in that movie. Good movie, classic.
Great movie, and really you haven't seen anything like it since. Cool. My next movie is two movies, and one I grew up on. And in the era, in the domain of sci-fi, things haven't aged well. And I'm going to ruffle feathers, and I'll say the Star Wars, the first few Star Wars movies, did not age well. They are getting tired, and maybe that's because Disney just overproduced in the last few years, just going with a Gatling gun of Star Wars spin-offs and things like that. I don't think they've aged well. But this movie, from a storyline, from the underlying themes, from the cinematography, and the soundtrack, has aged very well. And then there was a sequel made later, and that's Blade Runner. So it is just an incredible movie. And I say this, if I wasn't old enough, I didn't see it in the theaters. I think the first movie I remember seeing in the theater would be E.T. And so I didn't see Blade Runners in theaters. And even if I had, I was not old enough to
understand,
appreciate it. Yeah. Right. But if you ever get a chance to see the original Blade Runner in a theater, in Austin, you have the Draft House, and theaters around Portland here will play old movies. Go. Or if you have a friend or you have an elite system in your house, like that's the one thing I've spent money on in my house, is a really good sound system and TV setup for movies, because I love movies. Blade Runner is just cinematically beautiful movie. The sound is amazing. The story is incredible. I love movies that get into philosophy, and that's really what it is. So you think it's a sci-fi movie. It's based in the future.
And I think you would probably say that the sci-fi element of aging is aged better than kind of some of these other, flying car, laser guns, And
a big reason is there's not action. And there's really no big effects in the movie. And what effects there are what's called practical effects, meaning they actually made something like a miniature or something like that and shot it on film. Yeah. They didn't CG it in or what have you. Yeah. So Blade Runner has aged really well. Yeah. The story has aged well. And then Denis Villeneuve, who, as you mentioned, top of the hour, is making brilliant film. And to that point, without beleaguering it, because we'll probably have to do an episode on Denis Villeneuve at some point.
Yeah, I think so.
Is for my money the greatest director currently working, who's been on a 7-film heater. Made a Blade Runner sequel, Blade Runner 2049, which is a brilliant sequel. It fits in the universe of Blade Runner. It complements the original very well. Stands on its own really well. Even if you never saw the original Blade Runner, it's still a fantastic movie. And it does the same thing. The cinematography, the score, the philosophy. It's a huge, beautiful movie. And if I'm testing my setup, like I need to configure my surround sound, that's the movie I put on. Blade Runner 2049. Yeah. It is immersive. You have to, if you could be with that movie in a theater or in a good setup and it's dark and that's all you're doing, it is, it's a true experience. And I love them. And they're dad movies. My kids hate them, refuse to watch them because I watch them too much. I think I've burned them out.
Well, but I think the point, though, that I feel when you're sharing this is that like we're keeping this themed as dad movies. And so I think within the sci-fi realm, that it causes us to maybe just something as dudes or as dads, or maybe not. But it does tap on that like philosopher side of things, to be thinking about our current reality and where things are headed or could head. And it seems like the cool part about it is it captures your wonder because it's a different time, a different place, a different reality. and you see things that you've never seen before. And so that's kind of interesting and fun. But the thing I think that a lot of them have in common is like the doom element of, if we're not careful by heading in these directions, what can happen? Like there's always that battle between good and evil in those films, and they spin it a different way. But it seems like a lot of them they're led to by our own like devices, the things we've created, or the stuff that we've done as man, and what is the outcome of that. So I think that
what does it mean to be human? That's the question of Blade Runners. What does it mean to be human?
So with that being said, I'm going to change what's on my third.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to take it because I said Nacho Libre. I was going to say Napoleon Dynamite. I was going to say.
I think you could put Nacho Libre and Napoleon Dynamite together.
That's on the same one. They're tied at second.
Yeah.
So on this same thing for me, what does it mean to be human? I'll never forget seeing this movie in the movie theater. I saw it when I was in Washington, D.C. I saw the movie Terminator 2, Judgment Day. But to me, there's that, inside voice of like, okay, someday when the robots show up, it's all over. And they bring it to light. But they did this, 20 years ago, right in the front end.
This is over 30 years ago, John. We're getting old.
Man, I missed a decade in there. 30 years ago. I saw that movie. But, John Connor, he's like the kid in the movie. When I go back and I watch it, it's a little corny. But like, he's the leader of the resistance. He's the one that's going to defeat the robots. So there was a robot sent from the future to protect him, which is Arnold Schwarzenegger, which was the original bad one that was sent to protect his mother, or to kill his mother. So anyways, the thing that was so cool about it to me is there was like this big brother element to the movie. Like I saw the movie when I was a kid, and John Connor was like a bad boy. He like hops on his little dirt bike and he goes to an ATM machine, and he's smart enough to rip it off and get all the money he wants. And then, he's kind of this bad boy, but then eventually, the Terminator shows up and he thinks it's coming for him, but he's there to protect him. And he says, I'm going to do anything you tell me to do. So he's got this like invincible big brother, Arnold Schwarzenegger. So like, to me, thinking about dad movies, it's got all the action you want. It kind of talks about like that, protecting of the son, or to John Connor. And I think that's a movie I haven't watched with any of my kids, but I think that, it's about time.
It's got a hero.
It's got a hero in it.
Hero. Oh, it's important. Very good. No, I love that movie. That is easily one of the best sequels ever made, if not the rare situation where the sequel's better than the original.
I think artistically, the first one I think is better. The second one is good. It's better. It might be better, but it is a little like cheesier around the edges. The first one, the
technology, the ability to make the movie. We had technology that made it better. The liquid metal. T1000. That wasn't possible when in 1988 or 89 or whatever the first one came out. It was older, like 84. But great movie. I think another movie that qualifies as the sequel's better than the original is Ace Ventura 2. That's my other.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So next one here for me, what I tell people is, for me, the most watchable movie in my world. It is funny. It is serious. It is witty. It has some action. It has some gangster element. It's got great actors, and it's unique. And that is Get Shorty, which when I bring it up, a lot of people, I'm surprised by how many people haven't seen Get Shorty or even heard of it. So your lead is the premise is John Travolta is a heavy in the East Coast Mafia based in Miami and New York, and his job is to be the muscle to get people to pay up, those sorts of things. And he ends up in Los Angeles for work, chasing somebody down in that role, and stumbles into the movie business. And it's about the idea that making movies has little to do with making movies, and it's more about the politics, the relationships, and what's all happening in the background. So you never actually see movies being made, or at least they're very intentional about it. They spend all their time with all the other stuff. And it's hilarious. It's witty. It's got some cool twists, and it's just in that it has the right energy where it doesn't matter where what I'm feeling, what's going on. I can watch this. It's one that is always on my iPad downloaded, so I can, if there's not Wi-Fi available, I can always watch it on a flight. So it's one of my go-to airplane movies.
Be Cool a spinoff from that?
Be Cool is kind of a sequel. It is a sequel. And it's the same premise, although now he's getting into the music industry. So he's platforming it. And the one thing they messed up with that is in that movie, there's a few scenes where they're making music or music is happening, and it kind of takes away from the whole point of what the first movie was. Is we're not here to make movies. We're here to make movies and do stuff in the background. And so the music stuff that's put in it kind of is annoying. But it's hilarious. I'd say that one's funnier.
Yeah, Twinkle Twinkle Baby, Twinkle Twinkle.
Vince Vaughn just at his peak. But the original is just a better movie. So Get Shorty.
Yeah, awesome.
Easiest to watch movie for me ever.
Man, that was too long ago. I think you and I may have tried to start it like 15 years ago in the office. Didn't get far through. I need to watch through that again.
Yeah, you got to watch it in dad moment. And if you have somewhat younger kids, it's there's not a whole lot of cussing. There's really no violence in there. So.
And okay, well, I'm going to jump into my fourth one on my list. It's Stand By Me. That 80s movie of just the coming of age. They find their way out of their little town, and they find themselves into this adventure into the woods. But it's like they see things in the world that are ugly people. But yet they're just being kids and trucking their way through it. They get through it to the other side, but there's these.
Hey, you want to see a dead body?
Exactly. That's kind of what it starts with. And that's that journey to go see it. And then I think they see it and it just kind of turns their stomachs and everything. But along the way, man, just those scenes of like, the food eating contest with, the Barfarama that takes place.
Yep.
And, the train track scene where they're about to get run over by the train. But just, the leeches scene where they had to wade through water and there's leeches all over them.
The dog. They're trying to cut through that junkyard for a shortcut. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that we all have this taste of adventure, and that's kind of what it looked like as a kid. If, you could just find your way out of the neighborhood and find yourself into the woods, that's kind of like that in your mind, how that plays out. Like we're going to stumble upon some danger and there's going to be some people that are going to make us feel that. And then going to find our way through it on the other side. And so, to me, that movie really captures that.
It's about the journey. Richard Dreyfuss narrates. He's the one of the kids in it. He's returning to his hometown for a funeral. And it really is it's about the journey, but it's also, you don't realize at the moment how important now is, especially as a kid. And it really ends when he buttons up the movie at the end. He says this line that just gets you every time. And he says, I never had friends again like I did when I was 12 or 14. So I never had friends again like I did when I was 14. Mm-hmm. Jesus, does anybody? And you're just like, and it just wrapped the whole movie up. You're like, dang it. There was moments you didn't realize. And there was a time where when you were a kid at whatever age, where you spent the day doing stuff with friends and you didn't know at the time that was probably the last time you were going to do that thing or be around those kids. Mm-hmm. And as an adult, to enjoy that with my own kids and with my own friends to be in the moment. Great movie.
Yeah.
Hard hitter. Tough one. That's a tough watch for a dad movie, but good choice. Okay. My last one here. This is the feel good. And I have an episode planned, and this is a foreshadowing of it, of what I consider the holy trinity of 80s action sports movies. And one of those is called North Shore. So there's one about BMX riding. There's one about, and that's called Rad, great movie. And there's one about skateboarding called Gleaming the Cube. And when I say that, some people, well, what about thrashing? But as an actual skateboarder who had ambitions and potential to go pro, it was my thing. Thrashing is a garbage movie. And North Shore is the surfing one. Its premise is kid from Arizona is surfing in the wave pool at the water park, wins a contest, takes his money and goes to the North Shore of Oahu to surf. And it is just as a surfer, one, it's hilarious, but it also has some realness to it. Actual pro surfers play a bunch of the roles in it. Jerry Lopez, Mark Occhilupo, Laird Hamilton's in it. All those guys. They're in it. Mark Ho, and so you had all these people and they're doing real surfing. And I also lived in Kauai, Hawaii, as you know, and it does a very good job. Honestly, when people want to know what the culture is like, when you see movies that are based in Hawaii and they try to touch on what culture is like in Hawaii, there's two movies that get it right: North Shore and 50 First Dates. Specifically Rob Schneider's character and some of the locals in the cafe, like they nail it. That's what locals are like there. Some of those other ones don't get it right, but North Shore, it's just fun, makes me feel like a kid again. Reminds me how much I love the ocean and surfing, and it's just a dumb, ridiculous, fun movie. So one of my favorites. Sweet. And the other two that are in that vein, I also like to watch, but North Shore is probably the one I watch the most. Nice. I think I also keep it on my iPad for airplanes.
There you go, man. That's awesome.
Have you seen it?
Good choice. Dude, I don't think I've seen North Shore.
Rick Kane from the mainland?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen North Shore.
Great That's flick.
I like how you chose that though, based on, knowing you. Knowing you, I could see how that totally fits in there. I have seen those other two though, Gleaming the Cube and Rad. Those were movies I saw back as a kid, and I've seen them again. And so I didn't have the surfing, So I was more middle of America as a kid. I was in Nebraska at the time, so
could relate. Yeah.
Well, my last one on my list, it's interesting because for me, I feel like these last two are also pretty similar, but it talks about friendships. And I thought the last one, Stand By Me, would have made a case for best narrated movie. But this one on the list is also narrated really well.
Really similar movie,
but less gritty, more fun. Yeah. But I'm going to put Sandlot on the list. And the interesting thing about when I was thinking about that Sandlot is, it touches on socialization, kind of finding your way, finding your people, finding your friends. And like as a kid, all of my kids are going back to school right now, and I'm like feeling that for them. But I know that that's part of what they need to figure out. They need to find their way. And like you said, like some guardrails along the way. And in the Sandlot, you got this kid who he just wants some friends, and he doesn't know how to fit in. And his friends kind of, take his bad hat that his dad's fishing hat, rip it off his head, say, hey, put this one on, dude, looking out for you. They teach him how to play baseball. They find themselves in another dog situation, which is in Stand By Me. But they find their way out to that carnival, another barf scene. A lot of similarities, but and it just
when he peppercorns.
yeah. So a lot of that, just the baseball element to it too. There's just something down home, like with sports, with kids, and it's just classic.
Great movie, easy to watch. I love a vignette, kind of a memoir type movie. Fantastic. Love The Sandlot. Super quotable. Good one. Kids can watch it with the kids around. Kids might watch it. Depends. But
I don't think I would sit down and just turn it on myself though. That's one of the things on this list I'm like thinking through is like, 2 or 3.
But that's not your personality. Like that's not John. That's why you're one of my best friends, because you compliment me where I'm kind of an introverted extrovert, and I need the extrovert around me to draw it out of me.
And there you go. And on my list, I think I got to be able to put a movie on that can stay on from beginning to finish, that will be acceptable by everybody else in the room. We got a pretty full house. So these on this list work.
It's coming. There's a point once you have kids driving, where there's a lot less kids in the house. It happens quickly, so it's coming. Be ready. Honorable mentions, you got a couple on there? Just lob them out there real quick.
Couple on there. I mean, Braveheart, epic battle movie. Thinking of dad, you want that warrior in your child, or even you feel that within yourself.
Yeah.
And just, it's such a cool battle movie. And
I've gone more to Gladiator because it's shorter.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Gladiator's right there. And then the other
excited
one
about
on
the
my
sequel.
list. Yeah. It's be interesting to see. I mean, Ridley Scott helped produce that one. This one coming up. Yeah. I mean, so this got to have an edge to it.
I have high expectations.
And then another one on my list is The Lord of the Rings. Now, this is an epic, so that's why it's not on my top 5 list. There's just too many of them. But this is just fires on all cylinders for me. And
I call it the sick day movie or the rainy day movie, where you're stuck in the house, you can't do anything.
Yeah,
great. I have a couple on there. One, I would say this is probably my second most watchable movie, and probably one of the best movies that very few people, for whatever reason, have heard of or seen. And I think it's because it came out in 2007, and we should probably do an episode on the movies of 2007, because I don't know that there's been a better year for movies ever than 2007, with There Will Be Blood, No Country for Old Men, Once, Juno, Charlie Wilson's War, Michael Clayton, Atonement. Like, these are all movies that would have won Best Picture any other year.
Yeah.
All came out same year. It's crazy. But Charlie Wilson's War, Tom Hanks. This is based on a true story. He's the congressman from Texas, who does he's the one that basically enabled the U.S. to get the USSR out of Afghanistan, and basically that was the USSR's Vietnam, where it totally depleted it. Just totally, it led to the fall of Soviet communism, basically. So based on a true story, and it's Charlie Wilson. Charlie Wilson is played by Tom Hanks. And then his supporting actor is Philip Seymour Hoffman, and the chemistry they have together. When I go, I want to see some good acting. I want to see really brilliant acting and really good scenes. Charlie Wilson's War is what I put.
Dude,
on.
I need to check it out. I can't remember seeing that movie.
Best movie that I can think of that most people who haven't seen, and it's just because it just got lost in that year. But Charlie Wilson's War, fantastic. And the other one I really like, and it's kind of similar. It's a very good movie. It's a Texas movie, and that's Hell or High Water. It is Jeff Bridges is a cop. The movie is about two brothers trying to make a financial situation right, and go against big money at the bank, and they rob some banks. And it's fantastic. It's endearing. It's a good dad movie, but it's also, if you're from Texas, it is a great picture of Texas. When I think of movies that look like Texas, it's No Country for Old Men, There Will Be Blood, and Hell or High Water. They're great. It is a great Texas movie, so I love it.
Good ones on the list. Put that in the queue.
Reddit.
Get ready to watch those.
Reddit. I'm gonna let my dog out.
So, like, Reddit put together.
So Reddit is a social media. If you're not familiar with Reddit, it is a social media site that's been around for a long time, and it's based kind of on anonymity, but they vote. It's a great. It's probably one of the better platforms for arguing, because they're maniacal about. Yeah, they're maniacal about getting the good stuff and arguing and data and informed decisions. So I went to the movies Reddit and found a list on dad movies.
All right, let's see the list.
So I punched in, I build AI models, and I punched into an AI model, and I said, okay, do a sentiment analysis and mentions on this, and give me a ranked list.
Sweet.
And Ford versus Ferrari is one of the most dad movies in that list, that's my wife's go-to movie. That's her mom movie. She loves that movie.
Okay.
No Country for Old Men is on there. I love it. I think it's the best movie ever made. I think I have decided in recent years that that's the best movie ever made. No Country for Old Men. Hell or High Water is on there. The Hunt for Red October.
Jeez,
Moneyball,
dude.
Great flick. Revenant, I can't agree with that. That is an intense movie. Watch it once or twice. I'm done.
I've never heard of that.
That's the Leo one where he's out in the wilderness getting attacked by bears.
I've seen it. I saw it.
It's just it's a lot.
I guess I think thought I pronounced it Revenant, but you probably said it the right way.
Revenant, yeah. 1917, which is, I didn't care for that movie. I appreciate what they tried to do, but it lacks story and character and arc, because it's just a war scene. People be mad, but nobody, I hadn't heard about that. I'm gonna have to go look it up. And then Mad Max Fury Road, which is someone who I don't like action movies for action's sake. Fury Road is fantastic. And again, that's a movie, if you can see that on a good setup, take the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thoughts on any of those, John?
Visuals. Man, I think that this is representing a gap, of like seeing the dude movies, with another friend, or like, as a man going and catching a movie. Like, so many of the movies I see are with my kids, or with other friends and their kids, and none of these movies fit that list. And so I think my thought is like, I got to be mindful of catching some good artistic movies, movies that matter. And I think that that's helpful to see that on this list for me, is like, okay, well, when I get that opportunity, or I need to create an opportunity, these are a couple on there to choose from, instead of just surfing through the 4 different streaming movie platforms and like spending all my time trying to figure out what to watch.
Yeah. Well, my recommendation from my list is I think you should definitely see Get Shorty. I think out of my list, that's the one you're going to appreciate the most. Charlie Wilson's War is good, but it's a politics kind of movie. And if you don't like politics movies, I know that's kind of a genre. But Get Shorty, I think everybody can appreciate. And for listeners, what I recommend when you're trying to see movies, simply go to IMDb, and they have a link on here, and they have the top 250 movies based on IMDb. I'll put that in there. It is just a good way. Like, think of that as like a punch list. One that I think I'm surprised didn't come from the Reddit is Shawshank Redemption per IMDb is number 1. That's the best movie. Godfather, The Dark Knight, Godfather Part 2, 12 Angry Men, Schindler's List, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, Pulp Fiction, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, and then The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That's the top 10 on IMDb. Work through that. That's what I do sometimes. I'll go to the lister and go, are there any I haven't seen? And as you get in, there's going to be some that are very, very art focused. Like, I just started watching Seven Samurai a couple days ago.
Cool. Nice.
It's on Max.
Like the old
it's a 3.5 hour movie.
It's
1954.
Like a Western. Yeah.
It is a Western in Japan. So it's samurais, and Westerns are based on that. They, where it's an outsider who's the hero who comes in and solves the problem. But yeah, go to the IMDb top 250 and roll through there if you're looking for movies. I love it. But if I had to recommend one of my dad movies that I think a lot of people haven't seen, it's Get Shorty, and number 2 would be Charlie Wilson's War. But I think everyone else has seen Hunt for Red October and River Runs Through It. So, final thoughts on movies?
Man, I think just staying true to who we are, man. Get out there and fight for culture, and in the midst of all the things of being a dude, being a dad, being a husband, whoever you are watching this, just get out there and just keep pushing for and fighting for culture in your life. Yeah,
find some people. I would
go
say,
watch a good movie.
Yeah, watch a movie that might be a little bit outside of your wheelhouse. It doesn't have to just be superheroes or what have you. There are good movies out there. It's just, sometimes finding that stuff is tricky. And I think that's the same for a lot of art. So finding it. But yeah, start at the IMDb top 250 is a good place to go look. Scroll through that. See what you haven't seen. Check it out. So
sweet.
Awesome, John. We'll we'll see next week. We'll have what topics we have, but I think I'm going to go listen to Barack Obama's summer playlist and have some lunch.
Awesome. Good talking to you, bud. Everybody else who watched, thanks for watching. It's cool that y'all tuned in.
Rock on.